It's time to swarm the 402. Welcome to the Nebraska Hawkeyes. These guys are brave. They're Hawkeyes living in enemy territory. Listen, these guys are way past their prime, but they're still Hawkeyes. They're spreading the Hawkeye hype to all of Nebraska. The frost advisory is canceled. Corn Huskers, more like corn suckers. Are you ready for this podcast? Let's go Hawks!
All right, welcome back to the Nebraska Hawks Nest, your Hawkeye oasis located in a nasty, sick little Nebraska desert. Today, we are jacked. We are super excited to be joined by current Truman State head men's basketball coach, Iowa Hawkeye basketball legend, Mr. Jeff Horner. How's it going?
It's going good. So I'm pretty pumped up after that introduction too. So let's get going. I'm glad you specified that wasn't your guys' kid. So that was good. I liked it.
We had to, because it was like every interview we've done. The interview, we spend the first 5 minutes talking about how that's not our kid and how we set the whole thing up. And he, the Hawkeye Hype kid's awesome. He does a great job, and he does a lot. He just released his own Hawkeye Hype video for the year. So,
wow.
Yeah, he's gotten to be a pretty big deal. So, but speaking of gotten to be a pretty big deal, Coach, for all the Hawkeye fans that may not know, I'm pretty sure mostly everyone does know, update us on where you're at in your career right now, coaching at Truman State. I've been there. It's a beautiful campus, Division II program. Tell us about how things are going there and how the family is.
Things are going really well. So I'm entering my fourth year as the head coach here. I was at the University of North Dakota before that as director of basketball operations and an assistant. And so, things are going really good here. Wanted to make the step again to be a head coach. And Truman State's known for having a lot of Iowa people, that type of thing. So I'm extremely excited. I think we've done pretty well here. My first year here, brought in kind of a different new style than the last coach had, and they were pretty good here, before I was here too as well, and had some great kids. And we went through some injuries my first season, which was tough, but our kids kept fighting. And then the second season ended up winning the GLVC conference, and unfortunately because of Corona, we were on the bus to Indianapolis, and the Big Ten tournament had canceled the day before that, so I knew probably a good chance that was going to happen to us as well. And we got about 4 hours on the road and got told to turn back. And then last year, we were fortunate to just get to play basketball at all. We had a really good season, won the conference again. And then we were able to get to the Elite Eight, which they haven't done here, for a while now. I think 1999, that was the last team that went to the Final Four here at Truman State. And so it's been an awesome ride so far, and I'm pumped up to get this season going. We got a lot of guys back from last year, and ranked 6th in the country right now, which is awesome, but it also puts a target on your back too as well.
Yeah. And for those old guys like myself, Truman State would be the old Northeast Missouri State in Kirksville, Missouri. So, and tell us a little bit more, Coach, about your upcoming season. Who are some of the players? What have you got returning? And as you said, you're 6th in the first preseason poll. What do we got to look forward to as far as the Truman State team?
Yeah, well, just talking a little bit about, who we lost last year. We lost our point guard. His name was Turner Scott, who also is a Valley grad, which we might get into a little bit later. So I'm not a Valley grad, but coached there and Coach Turner. And he was kind of the glue that kind of kept everything together. 6-foot point guard, maybe 5'10". I don't know. We'll exaggerate a little bit, but he, like I said, he was our leader. He kept everything together and just really knew how to play the game. Was kind of a second coach on the floor. And so when you lose that guy who plays 35 minutes for you at the point guard position, you got to find, someone to come in and do that. And I do believe that we got 4 guys possibly to be able to do that. And we'd like to play 2 point guards at the same time anyways. But we have a kid named Hunter Strait who went to Ankeny Centennial, who he's entering his 4th year in the program. Started 2 years ago, asked him to come off the bench last year, accepted his role, which was, awesome to really see. And then we got a kid named Mason Miller, who's up from Iowa City, Regina, actually. He was the freshman of the year in our league last year and kind of plays a little bit like Steph Curry in a sense. I'm not saying he's Steph Curry, but he's got a quick release. He's probably the best shooter I've ever coached, and that's not a knock on Peter Jock either. So he's just got a really quick trigger. Another kid that we have is Sam Nissen from Prior Lake, Minnesota. He'll be entering his 3rd year here and just a tough, hard-nosed kid. And then we have a freshman coming in, Trey Shear from Montezuma, Iowa, who, he's a freshman. He's learning, but he keeps on getting better every day. And so we got those guys coming in to replace them. And we bring back an All-American, our big guy in Cade McKnight from Grinnell, Iowa, who was the player of the year last year in the GLVC, averaged about, I think it was 18 points, 6 rebounds, something like that. But he's back. And so we're going to ask a lot more out of him, be more aggressive, that type of thing. I know that's probably a lot to ask for a guy who averaged 18 a game, but he's been doing a great job with that. And then we have another kid from Sioux City Heelan, Elijah Hayescamp, our 3-man who started his career at North Dakota and ended up coming here, who really came on late last year for us. And so we're excited about him. And another Iowa guy, Dylan Peters from Davenport Assumption. So he's kind of one of those long, lanky power forwards that, will dunk on you in a heartbeat. And we got a lot of Iowa kids, as you can see. And so we're just really excited about the upcoming season.
And sorry, Adam, to cut you off, but I got to commend you, Coach, because as I was going down the roster, you mentioned Mr. Peters, and then you've got another player, and the names escape me right now, but recruiting hotbed of Eldridge, Iowa.
Yeah, Landon Island.
I got to give a shout out to Eldridge. I grew up there my early years till about junior high age, and they were nowhere near a recruiting hotbed 100 years ago when I was there. But anyway, I had to give a little shout out to Eldridge on that one. That was pretty cool.
Well, when I was at North Dakota, we had Cortez Seals and Marlon Stewart too as well. So we plucked a lot from there. So it's definitely getting good basketball there for sure.
Shout out to the Lancers. So anyway.
No, I feel like we're getting some NBA references here, bringing up like Steph Curry and things like that. Now, Jeff, does Jerry remind you a little bit of a young Vlade Divac? A little bit.
Who's that?
Vlade? You remember? Yeah, Jerry Vlade Divac.
It's the facial. It's the facial hair.
I can see the face there. I think if you had a cigarette, from the sounds of what Vlade did, smoking on the bench, I think that'd be better.
That kind of stuff's legendary. He was a crafty looking guy. I mean, down in the post, you'd look at him and be like, that is not a basketball player. He looks like someone that like works in a hardware store, and he can play some hoops, but. Going back to a little bit to the roots now, you were able to play for your dad out of Mason City. Tell us a little bit about that experience, being able to play for your dad, and then coming out of high school, a little bit about your recruitment process.
Yeah. Playing for my dad, it was up and down. There's no doubt about that. We're both pretty hard-headed people. And so, my freshman and sophomore year, I'm 14, 15 years old, and I'm playing varsity for my dad, and there's probably a lot of people possibly in town who, don't think I should be up playing varsity as a freshman, that type of thing too. And so I think that just kind of added to a lot of things, but it also, I'm kind of the, type of person that I want to prove people wrong, I guess you could say. And so it just kind of fueled my fire a little bit there. But, the first 2 years, it was tough. Like I said, I needed to grow up quite a bit. And, my dad was definitely hard on me, and then I think my junior and senior year, we started to see things a lot more eye to eye, that type of thing. Not that it was bad my freshman and sophomore year. It was just, I was just an immature kid,
Yeah.
and some people would say I'm still an immature kid, but it's one of those things where, I love playing for my dad. I'll never forget the last time when I think it was one of the last state tournaments at Vets Auditorium in Des Moines. We got beat by Ankeny in the state tournament, and him and me were the last ones coming out of the locker room, and just give him a big hug. And it's one of those things where when it's done, you don't want it to end. You didn't want it to end, but when you're going through it, it's like it goes so fast, and you don't want it to ever stop. And it was tough, to have it end like that. But my dad is, I think, a really good player's coach. He never told anyone to turn down a shot, so including me. I probably shot too much. So, but he definitely taught me a lot of things about the game, and obviously he's one of the first people that I go to for coaching now when I need, quite a bit of advice. But just playing for him, it was awesome, and I'll definitely never forget it. That's for sure.
So growing up in Mason City, Jeff, also, how big of an influence was Dean Oliver on you growing up? I know he'd probably had you by about 4 or 5 years, somewhere in there. Or? Yeah,
so he would have been in 7th grade. I would have been in 7th grade when he was a senior in high school, and so. Obviously with my dad being the coach, I was the little rugrat that was, on the floor and, challenging guys to play pig or horse. And, I think I got shoved in a locker one time, that type of thing, but I got out. So
we call it hazing, right?
Yeah. So, but no, Dean was always my idol growing up. And my sister actually was in his grade too as well. And my sister's best friend is who Dean is married to now as well too. So we just, obviously was really close with his family and her family and all that. And so I still talk to Dean quite a bit, but Dean was, the types of things that Dean was able to do, I still think he's one of the best high school players to ever play in Iowa. And, he was fun to watch and definitely a great role model to be able to look up to for sure.
Jerry, I got to say, whenever I see Dean Oliver on the sidelines at Wisconsin, it just doesn't look right. Like, they're just like, what are you doing over there, man? Did you wander to the wrong sideline? But you got to respect him, man. He's got a good coaching career going, and, we're really happy for him. We wish him all the success, just not against us.
Yep.
So go ahead, Jerry.
So go ahead and take us that further, Jeff, because you kind of touched on a little bit as a freshman, maybe the parents not being as happy, but you got offered by Iowa as a freshman, didn't you?
So going basically, I was in driver's ed, I think the day that I announced that I was going to Iowa, and I just got done driving in a car with, it said student driver on it. And so, being able to watch Dean and the stuff that he went through, and I was able to go down to quite a few Iowa games when he was doing that because my dad went down to as well. And obviously I was like, well, yeah, I'll tag along, and so it was good to be able to see that. The first letter I ever got was from Tom Davis in 7th grade, which was, obviously really cool. I think I had been at one of their basketball camps, and then, he obviously knew my dad and Dean. And so, when basically, Coach Alford came in and got the job, and I think I'm pretty sure that I was the first guy to commit to him at Iowa. Not the first guy to get to campus, obviously, but the first guy to commit. And I just knew I always wanted to be a Hawkeye. And I did commit when I was a freshman in high school. And I think you're starting to see quite a few more people getting offered at earlier ages and that type of thing. But, I just knew I wanted to be a Hawkeye. And so it was an easy decision for me.
All right, Jeff. Mr. Greg Bruner, just recently, a good friend of yours and a former Nebraska Hawks Nest alum we've had on and interviewed, just got, I believe, his 46th degree from the University of Iowa. Is it, Jeff? Tell us about your relationship with Greg and his educational journey that seems to be just never ending.
Well, we got a little flashing, but there's his announcement today, so...
There we go.
That's great. I love Greg. Obviously we've been really good friends. It started when I think we were in like 4th grade. He came up to basketball camp in Mason City from Charles City, and we always went at it. So we were always competitors. And then obviously he grew, quite a bit. Some still think he's probably 6'4", 6'5", even though he's listed at 6'7" type of thing. But he's always been a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends for sure. But, I tell you what, he's graduated quite a few times here in the past couple of years. Masters, I don't know. I don't know what other degree he can get, but we were actually texting last night, and I had fallen asleep, so I didn't get a chance to make fun of his post a little bit there. But we always kind of have that brotherhood where we make fun of each other and that type of thing. And when I was going through some health issues, a couple of years ago, he came down with me and sat with me during chemo for a week too as well, which was awesome to have one of your friends sitting there, even though I was not quite in it, I guess you could say. So, but we're always really good friends, but in the end, we're quick to jab at each other too.
Well, he's petitioning for an extra year of eligibility for golf. Is there any chance that we could see a Horner, Haleska, Bruner golf team at Iowa if you all had some golf eligibility left?
Well, I can tell you this. I mean, I just had hip surgery about 3 or 4 months ago, so the golf game for me is struggling a little bit right now. But I'm glad to see that Greg has gotten better at golf, because he's still the only guy that I've seen hit the ball between his legs twice in one round. So it sounds like the last time I played with him, he's gotten a lot better. That's for sure.
We thought about pitching him a student loan debt consolidation contract with SoFi to see if he could be their spokesperson, because there's no way he doesn't have student loan debt. That guy's got to have a ton of it for sure.
He's got to get an NIL endorsement. We didn't have that back in the day, so he's got to look into that, see where he can get it from.
So, Jeff, you touched on it real quick, and if we can just kind of find out, can you give us an update on your health? It was 2019, I believe, when you had your diagnosis, and how are things going for you, and what's your current prognosis?
Yeah, it's going really well. Would have been about 3 years ago I was diagnosed. Well, 2.5 years. I don't know. I try to knock it out of my memory a little bit, but
sure.
I was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and had surgery, and then you don't really know. I'm talking to my urologist, and then he says, "Oh yeah, you have in your lymph nodes too, so you're probably going to have to do a little bit of chemo." And I'm thinking, all right, well, chemo, I'll do it one day, and then I'll get like a week off, and then do it, another day. And then all of a sudden I went down to Columbia, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're going to have to do 5 days in a row, and then you get 2 weeks off, and then 5 days in a row, and then 2 weeks off, and you're going to have to do that 4 times." And I was like, "Oh man," so it was definitely a shock, but and obviously it was right at the start of my second season here at Truman State too. So, it was one of those things where my dad came down the first week and sat with me. And so he was, we actually stayed in a hotel. And then the next time I did it, I was like, I need to go home and see my kids and my family and make sure that, I kind of re-energize each day, I guess you could say, because it was definitely tough, but health-wise, I'm doing really well. Actually, I did my last chemo treatment 2 years ago. Yesterday was the last time. So we actually played Findlay University, who we play on Saturday. We played them on that day, and I had to miss that game. And I still remember yelling at my TV, watching the game, that type of thing. And so, but health is all good, and definitely makes you a stronger person, and definitely gives you a softer heart for quite a few other things too as well.
Well, Jeff, it's been noted that you've had a pretty strong relationship with Coach Steve Alford, the former Iowa basketball coach. And can you let us kind of bring us inside on what your relationship is like with him, and what type of guy Coach Alford is? And do you guys still keep in touch?
Yeah, I think when obviously, like we were talking about earlier, I was his first, recruit. And so I've known him since I was 14 years old. I'm 38 years old now, so that's, 24 years if my math is correct. But, known him for a long time. And, when we were at Iowa, the player-coach relationship, especially with a point guard, I think is probably different than, a lot of other players, that type of thing, just because, he's expecting you to be a, second part of him being on the floor, that type of thing. And so, our relationship was always really good, and I definitely think he's a player's coach. And, I think people kind of see sometimes in the locker room, it's if you're a coach, you find out that it's harder than what you think, as far as keeping everybody happy, because everybody wants to play. If you go play any type of sport, a lot of times the competitive edge takes over. And if you don't get the chance that you feel like, you deserve, I think it's hard for guys to think, well, coach doesn't care about me. And, I think sometimes that's probably the hardest thing in coaching is, after a win, I'm more worried about the guys that didn't get to play because they work just as hard as everyone else in practice, or they work hard on their own time, that type of thing. And so it's one of those things where coach and I have a good relationship. I would say we probably talk about, once a month or so, right around in there. And being in the coaching world, you always need help from other coaches. And, like Brian Jones was an assistant coach at Iowa when I was there, and he was at North Dakota, the head coach in North Dakota. So that's kind of how I got hooked up with that job out there. And Greg Lansing, who was an assistant at Iowa too as well, was the head coach at Indiana State. And so he brought our Truman State team in a couple of times to play us. And obviously those are good money games for us to be able to do that. So you got to definitely have other coaches around to be able to help you out. And I think that's kind of how you see a lot of coaches making their way in the world today. But Coach and I still, like I said, we probably talk once a month, whether it be over text, that type of thing. And, we have a good relationship, and, I wish all the best for him.
So Coach, on that note, did you guys connect quite a bit though too? Because, Steve played for his dad in high school, Sam, who was an assistant coach on that staff as well. And, was there any kind of a bond then along those lines with, you being playing for your dad and such, and the guard? There was a lot of parallels there. I mean, was that all kind of commonalities? And then what were your impressions of Sam Alford while you coached there as well? I think he gets kind of forgotten a lot of times.
Yeah, definitely. I think Coach saw a lot in me of himself, and especially probably just more in the competitive nature. Him and I were two peas in a pod when it comes to being competitive, I guess you could say. And Coach always used to play 3-on-3 with some of his freshmen. And it magically stopped when I got there, I think, because he thought we probably would have fought each other at some point. So, that's just kind of how competitive both of us are, really. And so I think he really saw a lot of that, in me from him in his playing days. And obviously just being a coach's son, I think that, that's something that, I know he cherished extremely a lot. Coach Sam Alford was on the bench with us too as well, and was able to, as you get older, you start to calm down a little bit more in coaching, a little bit. And I think he kind of provided that, perspective to, Coach as far as that goes, and really helped with, calming things down sometimes when, things got out of hand, or, hey, we can get through this, just relax and we'll move on. So he was kind of a little bit that calming presence sometimes that I think, really helped everyone out.
All right, Coach. Go ahead, Jerry.
Oh no, I just was going to say. So there was never a game of horse. There was never a free throw contest. There was never.
Oh yeah, there was that.
Who came out on top of those?
Well, I would say he came out on top more. He could shoot it. I mean, there was no. What I ended up started doing, I got smart about it. I took him out to NBA range, and he struggled a little bit, doing that. So that's when I was able to get him a little bit.
All right, we're going to get a real serious question here. We got you, we got Adam Haluska, we got Greg Bruner, and we got Steve Alford. All of you guys are playing knockout. Who's going to win and who's going to get last place?
Oh, man. Bruner for sure is getting last place. There's absolutely zero doubt in my mind about that. I'll just be nice. I think it comes down to probably Adam and Coach, and I think I'll give Adam the nod since he's more athletic. He can get to his misses probably a lot quicker than what Coach could.
All right, fair enough.
We'll take that one because I think Adam darn near won the state team championship in track and field for Atlantic back in the day. So he was pretty athletic. But on that note, we just got to share. Adam and I've talked about this before, Jeff, and we talked to Greg Bruner about it too. but this has to be one of the sickest photos of Iowa basketball we have ever seen. That is one of my all-time favorites. I think it was my
That's so
desktop
cool.
during basketball season last year. But do you remember that moment? Greg did, but I did. Are you curious? Do you remember what was going on there?
Oh yeah, he ran to the rim, and there was two Michigan State bigs, and I'm pretty sure I threw a pinpoint pass, and he caught it like a tight end in football and went up and dunked it, and that was probably the loudest I've ever heard Carver. And there was one other time in the game too when Doug Thomas stole it and went coast to coast and dunked on him, and those two moments were definitely the loudest I've ever heard Carver. When I was there, I can say that, and I would say they'd probably have to be up there for moments like that. But that photo goes around quite a bit, and I definitely remember it. Pinpoint on it, so no doubt.
How sick were those gold uniforms back then? Like, those are the best of all time. Like, those are the best, I think, Iowa basketball uniforms we've ever had.
Yeah, I like the I kind of like the cursive ones.
Those are cool.
Yeah, we never got those. So now that the Iowa team's got them now, I think those are pretty cool. But I love the gold uniforms. It's kind of now those uniforms now, looking back on it, obviously still being in basketball, were so heavy though. I mean, they were
they?
Now the material is like thin, but you're not putting holes in it or anything like that. It's staying together. And so that was the biggest thing, is that the material was just, a little bit heavy, especially when you got going, you got sweaty a little bit. But I love the gold uniforms for sure.
Yes. So you're officially of the age where you're telling your kids, back in my day, we had to deal with this and, all these other things. And so.
Oh yeah. So, no doubt.
Before we go off the Steve Alford subject, though, Jeff, what do you think is the biggest misconception fans had about Alford when he coached there? I mean, from what you've heard.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I'm kind of one of those guys that says things the way they are. And I'm okay with that. I feel like I am honest about stuff too, as well. I think, one of the biggest things obviously was when Coach, the way he handled the Pierre situation. And, I know Pierre and I've known him, and I think I saw him, 2 years ago when I was going through chemo. He was back at an Iowa football game, and I talked to him then and, just about stuff. And I think that where Coach, it didn't sound like he was sorry for the victim. And I think that was probably the biggest thing that, probably came out, because, when you're a coach and your players, they're like your sons, right? And so when your son says, "Dad, I didn't do it," when they're little kids, you probably don't believe them a lot of times, because they're doing something. But when they're older, it's hard not to believe them, but I think that's probably the biggest thing where Coach, went wrong, was there was, it didn't seem like he was heartfelt about, the victim. And I think he said that, later on in his time, where, I think he got asked when he was at UCLA or something like that. But in the end, I know I know he cared about the entire situation, not just, his player, going to jail or anything. It was one of those things. So I think that was, if something like that happened again, I believe that he would definitely handle it differently. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, because, people nowadays, I mean, a lot of Hawkeye fans, they struggle with that. And I understand. I completely understand that. And so I think he that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, is that he was cold-hearted a little bit in a sense, and cared about, himself. And so being in the locker room, I could tell that he cared about me and our guys that were in the locker room. And I think that, he was very guarded when he was growing up, because he was such a big name back in Indiana, that it was, all right, are people trying to use him, those types of things. And so I think those are probably the two biggest things that, I think if Coach had to do it all over again, I do think that he would do things differently. And, I think people would want him to do things differently too as well.
All right, Coach. I know you've been asked about this a million times and have spoken on it at length, but we have to at least touch on it. That 2005-2006 run in the Big Ten tournament, how magical that was and how much fun that was to watch. Can you pull us inside a little bit about what that experience was like, what the feeling was in the locker room as you guys went on that run, and just how it felt to make a run through the tournament like that?
Yeah, I think I think it starts a little bit before that, right? Because we were on pace to win the Big Ten regular season title, and obviously that hasn't happened at Iowa for a long time. And we go on the road, we stumble at a couple places which we shouldn't have, but in the end, that's basketball. I mean, I think we went to Minnesota, who wasn't the greatest team that year, but they were capable of beating good teams, and we lose that game, and basically in the end, it kind of almost lost us the Big Ten regular season championship in a sense. And so, from then on, when we finished second place, our whole thought process was, all right, we want Ohio State again. It doesn't matter when it's going to be or anything like that. We want to be able to play them. And so we knew we were going to have to, get to the Big Ten tournament championship to do that. And, we come out and we play the team that basically ended our chances of winning a Big Ten regular season championship in Minnesota. And they came out, they had played the day before. And I always think that if you get to play in the arena the day before, the second game is easier than the first game. But I think when you get to that third day and you try to play, I think it's tough on the legs and that type of thing. But the second day is always the scariest, in my opinion. And so we were able to go out. We played really well. And then, we obviously got the win. And then we playing against a Michigan State team who just runs and guns and is super athletic. And, we come out on top there. We grind it out. And then, we get who we want in Ohio State with Terrence Dials and Jaquel Foster and those guys. And so it's like, all right, well, we only got to play you once during the regular season. We beat you and you're the Big Ten champion. So let's go. And that's where we were kind of at with it because, it's hard, right? Like that year we go 2-0 against Ohio State, in the regular season and then the Big Ten tournament. And so we're just thinking to ourselves, well, the Big Ten regular season championship got away from us. But being in there and just seeing all the Iowa fans going crazy and wild, I'll never forget it too. After we won, we were coming off the floor and some guy gave me a kiss on the cheek. He's like, "Go Hawks," I was like, yeah, water's being thrown all over the place and stuff. And it was definitely the best moment I've ever had basketball wise, especially playing that, you'll always think about it. You'll always remember it. You still see photos of it. You still see sometimes you go somewhere, just a random place in Iowa, and they got pictures up of, Brunner hugging me or, us getting the Big Ten tournament trophy. And it was awesome. And, I was just excited to definitely be a part of that. And, unfortunately it didn't end after that the way we wanted it to, but it's one of those things that, it's a moment that you'll never forget for sure.
Well, and touching on Northwestern State game, I mean, we have to relive that as Hawkeyes. We have to relive that shot. It seems like year in and year out every time they show the highlights. But contrast it emotionally, Jeff, because it was a hard fought battle. I think Greg had talked to they were more of a veteran team than what everybody realized and such. And take that you go from the highest of high on a Sunday, and then the following Thursday, Friday. I mean, you hit that. I mean, how difficult was that for you as a player to process all that?
Yeah, it was hard, especially because I think when you play sports, a lot of people, you obviously want to win. I mean, right? That's the biggest thing. And that's what players and coaches and fans, we all want, is for our team to be the best. And I knew, once that was over with and we're sitting there in the court, my biggest thing was, all right, because I do think we could have made a really good run, that year. And I think, obviously you think about that, but then I think, well, I'm not going to get to play with my best friends anymore, and it's just like in high school too, right? I grew up with these guys and we're best buddies and I don't get to play with them anymore. And I think that's when I got back to the locker room, I think, and you see everybody with their heads down and crying. And I think that was probably, the biggest emotional roller coaster ride I've had, in a week. But then you get down the line, you have a family, you have kids, you get diagnosed with cancer, and now you're sitting here saying, okay, like that's, while it's an important time in my life and it means a lot, it's now you're at a point in your life where, other things are definitely more important than a basketball game, and I know that's hard. Trust me, I think about it every single day. I'm like, God, that sucked.
Well,
and I know fans get that too, so it's just tough for sure.
But that, to that point, as a 22 to 23-year-old, your sample size of life is nowhere near what it is like what you've said right now. So it's easy to understand. And I mean, that was so much of a part of your guys' identity back then when you played. So, I mean, that's always kind of why I like to ask the question about, just, how difficult was it to process those things for you guys where that was such a big part of your identity at that moment?
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, I think the way, we faced the media after that was indicative of the people that we are too. I think that, could have easily just, put a towel on and went to the shower and said, I don't want to talk to anybody. But, our whole team faced the media and I was just, those are things that you become more proud of as the years go on for sure.
All right, Coach, I've been perplexed on this for a long time, and I want you to set me straight, okay? So you got a team that wins the regular season championship in basketball, and then you got another team that wins the conference tournament. Which one's the true champion?
I think it's the regular season champion. That's my opinion on it, because I think once you get into a tournament setting, and this is also the case in a regular season, anyone can beat anyone, but I feel like it's definitely a bigger sample size. It's kind of like, in my opinion, it's like college football right now, right? You got 4 teams, and basically you have a committee that just kind of, picks who they think the 4 best teams are. And, everyone else just kind of gets left out, even though maybe they played really well throughout the whole year, but maybe they don't get a chance to the underdog story, not get a chance to get in there. But my thing is the regular season. But I also understand why people pick the tournament champions too as well.
Well, but it does make it nicer too, because again, you guys, as you're talking about coming down the stretch with the conference tournament, I mean, it gives you guys another shot to get that automatic bid and not have to wait for the selection show too. So it's a good thing, but I was just curious to see what the input of somebody from the inside might be on that. So go ahead and take us then, Jeff, beyond that. We could sit there and talk about your Iowa career all day. I mean, I think you're, my gosh, among the Big Ten leaders still in so many statistics, as well as, Hawkeye history. And we know you've only got a certain window of time. So kind of take us then to after your Iowa career, then what were your opportunities professionally? And how did you end up overseas like you did? And take us kind of through the progression there.
Yeah. So after I was done, playing at Iowa, ended up signing with an agent, and then ended up I worked out for the Denver Nuggets, the Detroit Pistons, and also went down to Orlando and worked out in front of every NBA team down there too as well. Didn't get a chance to play summer league. I thought I'd have that opportunity, and that didn't come my way my first year, and got a really good deal over in Belgium my first year. And you get over there and I'm like, I don't know what to expect or anything like that. Are people going to speak English? Am I going to have trouble with the language? I was a picky eater. What's the food going to be like? And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right. And that first year, I really struggled right away. Really the first time that I was away from my family for, that far away, where it's like, all right, I can't just drive home if I really needed to talk to anyone or anything like that. And, so I struggled with that, just being homesick a little bit. And then went home for Christmas, came back after Christmas, and just started to play really well. And but my team in Belgium was a bunch of awesome guys. Like, I'm still friends with quite a few of them till this day, and talk to them every once in a while too as well. And so I think that made things a lot easier. And so we were able to make it to the finals my first year, which was cool. And Bruner was actually only like 50 minutes away from me that first year too. So we saw each other and drove to each other quite a bit, especially when we had off days, those types of things. And then going into my second year, I didn't get home until like June 20th. And then I was able to be on the Houston Rockets summer league team, and they ended up drafting Aaron Brooks, who was a point guard at Oregon at the time. And as soon as they drafted him in the first round, I was like, oh man, I'm not going to get to play, a whole lot. So I think I played like 5 minutes a game or something like that when I went out there, but did my thing, that type of thing. And then I left there July 2nd, or went to Vegas on July 2nd. And we were out there till like July 20th. And then all of a sudden my agent's like, hey, I got a great deal for you in Paris. But you got to leave in like 5 days. I was like, there was just no time in between that year or during that summer where it was like, all right, you just get to kind of go back and hang out. But, had to take it. So I went over there, was on the team for 2 months, and they ended up cutting me. Actually, Kelvin Torbert and Jaquel Foster were on that team, and Taj Gray, who also played at Oklahoma. And so we all got to be pretty close friends, during that time. And so when they cut me, it was kind of tough because they wanted to bring in a point guard that could really score. And I was like, well, why don't you tell me that you need me to score? I would have done that. I didn't think you needed that from me. You got these 3 other guys over here, type of thing. But it's one of those things where, like I said, I got cut, and then I actually ended up signing with the G League or the D League team back then, the Iowa Energy. Nick Nurse, it was his first year. He kind of got that whole thing going, and so it was really cool to be able to stay home and do that. NBA guys were going up and down. It was a tough year. It was like, you play a little bit here sometimes, and then this. And then about the last 15 games of the year, Haluska he ended up getting waived. I think got traded to Houston, got waived. And so then he came down to the Energy, and it was him, me, and Curtis Stinson in the backcourt. And so it was kind of just cool to see, us all kind of playing because we played the game the right way, and I think that when you get in those situations, it's hard, right? Because everybody wants to get called up to the NBA. So I got to do my thing. How can I, show up here, this and that? And I was like, I just want to win. I don't, I don't really care about that.
So Nick Nurse, whatever happened to him? Did he ever go on and do anything then?
Yeah, so he did one. I think he's best known for just a G League championship now. He was great to play for. But he, I'm not surprised to see, how well he's done in the coaching world. He's, one of the smarter guys I know basketball wise for sure, no doubt about that. So, and then, after we played that year, I went back over to Belgium, and the team ended up not paying us. And I broke my foot like the 3rd day of practice while I was over there. So it was, they didn't pay us. They were giving us a little bit of money here and there, but not to what your contract was. And I was like, so I just have to stay here, because I couldn't go to any other team. They're not going to take a guy with a broken foot. And so then I ended up getting healthy and went to a team in France, broke my foot again in the same place, came back, sprained my ankle really bad. Then I hurt my knee as well and had to have surgery on both of those. Tried to give it one more chance in Belgium the next season. And I was just like, my body is just an absolute mess right now. And so I was like, I'm done. Got into coaching.
So all these surgeries and everything, are you technically the $6 million man now, Jeff? Or I mean,
I have a lot of metal in my body, I guess you could say. So.
All right, Jeff, to wrap things up, we're going to need to get a good story out of you with you and Greg and Adam. We know there was some shenanigans back in the day when you guys were in college. We've all done it. We've all been there. I know I had my fair share of shenanigans back in the day, but give us a good story of you 3 back in the day hanging out, something funny that you look back on and you're like, God, that was hilarious, that you get laughs at sometimes, because Adam told us there was plenty.
There are. I'm trying to think of one that's just like, the one, I guess. So, I mean, in the end, a lot of them are probably inappropriate, but they probably all had to do with us picking on Bruner. So I mean, one time when we were playing golf, I mean, he hit the ball between his legs twice. That is an absolute true story. And he also, I believe, hit one in the pool at the Riverside Casino too, as well, on one of the holes too. But one of the funniest things probably was, we always had shampoo and stuff in the showers, and Bruner would, for some reason, wash his hair, and we didn't have any. So it was one of those things where he would be washing his hair, and we'd put shampoo over it, and he kept on wondering, where's all this soap coming from? It's still going and stuff. And so and he just could never quite figure it out. He'd come out of the shower, his eyes would be all red and all that kind of stuff, and we just keep going on about our day. So it was definitely there was a lot of shenanigans, no doubt. And I would say that probably me, Jack Brownlee, and J.R. Angle were probably the host of many of those things.
Well, one more quick thing I wanted to ask you, Coach, too, and we know you're on limited time here, but when you coached at West Des Moines Valley, you got into the coaching ranks, and you coached a young Peter Jock. What was that experience like? Did you see what he was? Could you tell right away what he was going to bring to Iowa when he went on to the collegiate level? And who won the shooting contest between you and Peter back in the day?
Yeah, that was that whole story is kind of amazing. So I think it was going into his junior year. He had patella tendon surgery that kind of hindered him. Obviously, he's the number one player of the year his freshman year in the country, and then he has this knee injury that's like Amari Stoudemire had it, I think, and was never really as athletic, that type of thing. And so when he ended up coming over to Valley from Roosevelt, he wasn't that far removed from his surgery. And I do believe that surgery takes a year to a year and a half to really recover from. And so, he's going through practice and stuff his junior year, and he just couldn't move. And I felt bad for him because I knew, like that's not the player that you were. And so, we kind of just kept pushing and, physical therapy and that kind of stuff. And at that point in time, obviously Pete could really shoot it, but he was also 6'6". So it's kind of like, well, are you a 3? Are you a 4? That type of thing. And so, and him not being able to move the way that he is used to doing, he couldn't put the ball on the deck and get to places that he wanted to be able to go. And so I was like, man, I don't know, is he ever going to get back to what he was? And then I think it was an open gym going into his senior year, and I was there, and he went up and dunked on someone, and I was like, okay, now he's back, And obviously Pete wasn't really known for his athletic ability to begin with, but he was more known for his shooting. And, it was one of those things where I just felt really happy for him to be able to get back to what he was, because I think there was probably a doubt in his mind that he was going to get back. But Pete is a great kid. I still talk to him every once in a while too, and I'm ecstatic that he's playing professional basketball. I don't care where it's at. To be able to do those things is something to definitely be proud of. And shooting wise, yeah, I'll give it to him. He's a better shooter than me, so I'll take it out on that. I'm more of a streaky shooter. He's more of a pure shooter.
Well, we appreciate the honesty.
All right, Coach. Well, just want to tell you, good luck this season. We're going to be watching. We're going to be rooting for you the whole way. And honestly, thank you for everything you did as a Hawkeye, all those great memories that you guys created. We always look back on, and at the start of every basketball season, which we're right here starting out tonight against Longwood. So just want to tell you,
with the 9 o'clock game.
That's late. I know. I was shocked. Grandpa Jerry's not going to stay up for that one. He's going to have to DVR.
That's Geritol time. I mean, come on.
I might be sleeping by then.
I don't know. I'm gonna try to stay up. I'm so excited. And since it's the first game, I'll probably push through.
Still got the youthful family to wear you out. Mine's just called physical demise. So
yeah, I just kind of don't sleep anymore because someone's always jumping on me or something like that. So
all right, Coach. Well, hey, good luck this season. We're going to be watching you, and thanks for coming on to the Nebraska Hawks Nest. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I had a lot of fun, and I think it's awesome that you guys got a podcast in Nebraska Hawks Nest. So that's the best.
You got to keep the Hawkeye spirit alive out here.
If you ever need any recruiting connections in Nebraska. Adam's got them, so I'm sure he'd be more than willing to help you out there. So.
Anytime you got a player, you just let me know.
All right,
I'll shoot him your way. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.